r/NoSleep. Posted by u/mbird304. We went into their territory, and they initiated a game of hide and seek. Please like and subscribe to support us. This is probably a situation where if this student was absent then they were the lucky ones. It was 100% true here. The morning was mostly normal. I woke up at 4:45 a.m., this was only because I had to go and make myself breakfast and feed my dogs and turtle. It was raining out too, so no biggie, I would just use my raincoat. My dad woke up at about 5:30 to go prepare for work, and then when it was 6:30 I would go and wake up my mom and tell her that I was going outside. When I finally got on the bus driver was rather silent, but she was usually cheery in the morning, but it was the morning, so of course maybe she had a bad morning, that's all. When driving, it only rained even harder. It seemed like the fog that eventually appeared was black. At this point there was more people on the bus, but we all just didn't even pay attention. When we got to the school it was hard to even navigate through the dark. What the fuck? I mutter as I went and pulled out my phone from my pocket to use the flashlight. It helped only barely. When I finally got to the building I could finally let out a relieved sigh. What was confusing was that my principal was not there to usually greet kids that had entered the building. I know it's just a weird detail that I'd raise an eyebrow at, but the principal waited at the door every day. After a few minutes all of the kids went to go to the classrooms. Usually my homeroom teacher was always late and had her door closed and locked, so me along with every other student in the homeroom class was outside in the hallway. The other teachers had their doors open as usual. The school was basically a calm school, there was no bad kids in here. Is she late again? Charlie groans as she ends up leaning against the wall. My eyes darted to the brunette as my thoughts just began to race. Did the teacher forget about us? Then Joseph had chimed in. She probably is late. Miss Lee usually would end up being late, but I still hope she isn't here today, Joseph says. Well, that was when the announcements came on as Joseph, Charlie, and well, many others in the class had began to talk and talk. I tried to listen in on the announcements just to at least know what was going on. Yes, I know it seemed dumb to listen to the announcements in the morning. Well, there seemed to be a groggy voice come up over the speakers, a groggy voice the students in the hallway had ignored. Today we won't be doing class today. There is going to then be a game, we all will participate. That's when my homeroom class had silenced. You are to participate in a game of hide and seek. If you can end up surviving, then we will let you out, the what I assumed to be principal announced over the PA system. You will have a 100 seconds countdown. The teachers are IT. If you are caught, you will be eliminated. A student named Elijah seemed to be scared shitless, and honestly, we all were. Wait, Elijah begins, trying to make sense of the situation. Why is this suddenly happening? Well, then the PA system got louder and continued the rules. I mean, we all knew hide and seek. There was also about 4,000 kids in the school, so all the teachers were heading to go and catch us? How would we all even hide? The lights will be off. You must take off your shoes. Don't try the vents, we will find you in there. You can move around, but we can't guarantee it'll be easy. You are only caught if we catch you. You can try and leave, but we will stop you. Looking back, this makes a lot more sense. You are only caught if we catch you, only because they're giving us an opportunity to run. Then they started the countdown. 100. 99. Wait, what? I snap out of listening to the announcements. I could end up hearing worry end up coming from the other classrooms. 96. 95. Some of my classmates, not sure what else to do, had ended up removing their backpacks and tossing them down. I also end up tossing my backpack aside. Kids ended up exiting their classrooms. 91. 90. I ended up removing my shoes as well as what other kids had did. Why did this even need to happen? The lights go off and then I shrieked as along with a lot of other scrambling kids, we all dispersed, too afraid to what the consequences will be. I took my phone with me. It lasted a while with its battery, so I figured if I needed light, this would be the best I could do until I actually found a flashlight. 80. 79. As I ran downstairs and tried to find a remotely decent hiding spot. God, the school was so fucking big. How could I end up handling finding a hiding spot? There had to be something good, right? 70. 69. It still felt like there was nothing good. I didn't want to end up finding hiding spots with other kids in fear they would end up finding a way to blow my hiding spot. Maybe the welding area could work? No, maybe I could pick the science lab in the A hallway that had a big cabinet I could fit in? Oh yeah, there was this empty science lab. It didn't have anything in there, but there were times that kids went in there to go and watch movies, but no teaching supplies were ever put in these cabinets. I was small enough and skinny enough to squeeze in. Maybe I could find a better hiding spot. 56. 55. I managed to make it down to that hallway. It seemed there was probably a good group of kids that split in the hallway. Oh god, oh fuck, please let there be an empty cabinet, I thought to myself. Well, there was, room A-108. I swung open the empty cabinet and then went in there, shutting the cabinet door behind me. I used my phone as light as I tried to end up connecting to the school's Wi-Fi. 40. 39. At this point I was just sitting there, closing my eyes. I don't know why this was happening, but terror made my whole body shake. I could hear kids scrambling to go find a hiding spot. I don't even know why there was no teachers, but maybe they're just giving the kids a chance to hide? Why are they even having us hide in the first place? 3. 2. 1. That's when it finally started. I slightly opened the cabinet to get a peek out on what was happening. I didn't see anything yet. But then all the color drained from my body when I heard it. Outside the room door I heard some croaking sounds that didn't sound human. Upon hearing that I shut the cabinet door and then turned off the light on my phone. The door creaked open, and my hand went to cover my mouth. I could have swore I heard a distant scream, probably same hallway, and then silence as I hear crunching sounds from a different room. Whatever entered the room wasn't a human. I heard the stomps, it was heavy. The sounds it made sounded like it was clicking its teeth, and the breathing was heavy. I hear it stand in front of the cabinet I was in, and I close my eyes, tears running down my cheeks as I now at least know that these aren't humans. These aren't our teachers. I don't know what this school became. When the creature had left, thankfully, I let out some quiet breaths of relief, and pulled out my phone to check to see if I was connected to the school's Wi-Fi. 1 bar. And that is how I'm even typing here, typing to at least get this out to you guys. I'll try and respond to comments despite poor Wi-Fi. I don't really know what's going on, but I need to get out of here. With it being Friday, I doubt it's going to let us out when it's Saturday. Yeah, these were not our teachers. The teachers were replaced by some weird monsters. I knew I couldn't end up somehow magically going home, well I basically accepted it. After I ended up getting the first part of what I had sent on here, I had ended up waiting in the cabinet as I began to hear more screams in this hallway, but only stopped when I no longer heard the creatures, or the students' screams. Slowly I had exited the cabinet I hid at. So far so good. I didn't even want to end up using my phone as light. I had to save my phone so it can get these posts out to you guys and last for a good while. When I had exited the classroom, it was so far so good still. I glanced into the classroom next to the lab and then that's when I felt sick. From what I could see it seemed like there was 2 students that were in there due to the 4 human legs. Now they are kind of everywhere. It seemed intestines were pulled, somehow a fucking lung was bit out of. A fucking lung. I turned away from the mess I had seen, continuing to at least hopefully search this bottom hallway before making my way up. Albeit this was risky, but I had a feeling if I ended up waiting any longer, I would have been caught. I heard a scream down the hallway next to where I had entered what seemed to be a lounging area for what was for kids to work at, and it was with the cafeteria nearby. That is when I ended up running to the cafeteria blindly. The cafeteria seemed even darker than the areas I had ended up being at so far, but I continued towards the area where students would get food at. Everything seemed so empty beside the backpacks that were basically around and about. I jumped past the counter or whatever you want to call it that separated the students and the people handling the lunch. It was like a Chipotle line, and there was of course things you could get. I noticed there was the usual lineup of apples in this basket, so I grabbed an apple to go try and eat as I frantically tried to be as quiet as possible, moving around in the area. Before any of you end up judging me for ending up searching around, I heard no creatures. In fact, I didn't see any either. I thought I saw a monster after a few minutes, but as I went past a curtain, a hand reaches out and grabs my arm to pull me back, and before I could have ended up yelping, a hand goes over my mouth as I was yanked into the curtain. "Amber!" A male student had whisper exclaimed upon recognizing me, and my nerves eased to see a familiar face. The guy's name was Hunter Barnes. He had green eyes, probably some of the most pretty I had ever seen, and nice wavy brown hair. We were friends, well actually a bit closer than that, but we weren't in the same class. He had classes downstairs. Relieved to see him, I pulled him into a tight hug. It was dark, but I could still see him since he was close. "I'm so happy to see somebody, where are we?" I whisper, pulling away. "The area where they have these lounge breaks. I noticed there is a lot of these weird break rooms, hey, but I'm not complaining," Hunter whispers, that nervous quiet chuckle coming from him quickly becoming evident he was just as scared shitless as I was. Well, that was when Hunter began to explain the sequence of events that happened so far for him. He was actually in the cafeteria when the announcements began and things counted down. Hunter apparently decided to just choose the cafeteria, well, an area in the cafeteria as his hiding spot, and that's how he ended up here, waiting until the countdown ended. I go on to ask if he's seen the teachers, only asking if by some case there was the human teachers around. Hunter only shook his head. "Amber, I only hear these weird creatures, and then screams, and then silence. I did not even dare to look out of this spot until I heard somebody going around here, which was you," Hunter explains, finally sitting down. "That was when we were quiet for a bit. There is a window out here I tried looking out of," Hunter finally says to break the silence. I look up at him, waiting to hear what he had to say about what it looked like outside. The brown-haired man let out a little sigh. It still has the fog, Amber." His voice was shaky. "The unusually dark fog. I don't know what's going on." He sounded like he was going to cry. I couldn't end up standing to hear him cry, or at least not do anything. I got up and pulled him into a hug. "None of us do." I whisper softly, my voice getting just as shaky, the boy in my arms trembling. "We will end up getting out of here." Attempting to reassure him was only making me feel even more anxious. He couldn't see anything outside, and the fog had not cleared up yet. At a loss on what to do, we only went silent for a bit and pulled away, but then we began to speak about where I was, and then where those creatures could have possibly been at. I went on to explain that I was in A108, hiding in a cabinet. I heard heavy footsteps that were not human, and awful breathing that could not have possibly been human. "Do you think that possibly those creatures are at a whole other side of the school?" I ask. Hunter put a hand to his chin. "Perhaps. There is a lot of kids here, so what if they are just being thorough?" Hunter murmured. We were interrupted by the cafeteria door slamming. We didn't dare even try and move. But there was a voice that rang out. "Hello?" A girl's voice croaked out. It sounded like she had been sobbing. Hunter and I looked at each other. What the fuck was she doing just randomly yelling out loud? The voice sounded oddly familiar too. I slowly began to exit the area Hunter and I were held up at, Hunter gently grabbing my hand as to stop me. I shot him a look. "Just peek out, see if you can tell who it is." Hunter whispers, and I slowly nod in reluctant agreement. When I look out, I couldn't tell who it was from the darkness, but she seemed injured from what it looked like to be limping. "Please. Please, please." The girl seemed to beg as a sob came from her. Now her name hit me. Shelly Johnson. She was in my class. I never really interacted with her except for class assignments, but my interactions with her were good. Someone. Her voice was cracking, her voice just sounded begging. She wanted to end up having help from somebody. I tried to end up moving my hand away from Hunter's, but his grip tightened. His hand was trembling as an unsettling chattering noise echoed over the cafeteria. "Hunter? Hunter?" I yelled, wanting to go help. "You idiot. Amber, she's dead." Hunter hissed at me, and my eyes just widened and went to fill with tears. He pulled me back into the place we were held up at, and then I heard the cafeteria door open. "WWH, no, 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 no." Shelly's voice stammered as the noise from the chattering seemed to get even quicker. "No, oh God no." Then suddenly a scream echoed, then a loud crunch was heard, Hunter being the one to pull me into a hug as tears ran down both our cheeks as we closed our eyes, hearing the monster devour a student. After a bit of hearing crunching, gulping, and what sounded like cackling, we heard the door open, and then shut as there was no longer sounds that echoed within the cafeteria. I began to panic. We need to go," I whisper as I pulled away from Hunter finally. "And do what?" Hunter asks as he wiped his eyes, sniffling. "Search the school. We need to at least find a way out, or see if we can head out. Or see if we can find other kids," I stammer as I began to pace back and forth. Then I stopped and looked at my phone. At the time, it says it was about 11:37 a.m., so basically almost 4 hours since the game had started. "Let's see if we can sleep here, and after we wake up we can go and eat something," I suggest to Hunter. He agreed with the idea as he went to go find a spot to both sit down at and sleep. Admittedly, we didn't really feel safe sleeping alone or whatever. We sat next to each other and then grabbed each other's hand in the darkness, to at least reassure that none of us were going to leave. Besides, it gave some comfort despite the situation that was going on. Eventually, after what felt like forever, we both fell asleep. I woke up first, checking the time. It said it was 8:56 p.m., almost 9 o'clock. Yeah, everybody's parents/caretakers had to be looking around for us. I turned to my side, Hunter's hand still gripped tightly onto mine. "Hunter," I whisper, gently nudging him awake. His eyes went open, seemingly relieved to know I was still here. "Amber," he whispers as he got up. Well, now we had to at least try and go eat, so we went to search the area for food. We managed to dig up 2 bags of chips, 2 apples that we grabbed from the basket, and water. It was not a full meal, but it was something, and it was better than nothing. After finishing eating, Hunter got up to look out the window. "It's still foggy, I can't see shit," Hunter murmurs, evident by now that this was not normal fog. Shakily, we both went to head out of the cafeteria. I held my breath going past what was Shelly's remains on the floor. It felt like it somehow got even darker since it was nighttime, not to mention it was freezing. Quietly walking around, we ended up going down to the welding area, or what we assumed was the welding area, an area that people said was pretty damn hot in there. There also was a way out in there, and it was basically like a garage door. Upon making our way down, we could hear the constant echoes of screams and the creatures chattering of their teeth. After getting to the room, which was cold, we both just sat down, pale. There was a toolbox over near us. Hunter noticing, he got up and went over to it. I looked up at him. "I would rather at least have something to defend myself with, and we don't know if some people are willing to." His words trailed off as he continued to rummage through the box. I knew what he was saying. Sometimes people in these situations might get desperate. But would I even have the guts to kill somebody if that somehow came down to it? I got up and went over to the toolbox to grab myself something, anything. I pulled out a wrench, Hunter pulled out a screwdriver. That was when we both gave each other a look of uncertainty, but then we heard something fall in the room. Our heads turned to see what it was. "Guys?" a boy's voice whispered, then we both let out a huge sigh of relief. "Elijah, you fucking dumbass, you scared the shit out of us," Hunter hissed as he shut the toolbox. I only gave Elijah a not-so-friendly glare. Elijah just gulped and went to step a bit away. I'm sorry, I just hid in this closet here," that's all Elijah says. I think I may have fell asleep in there, but it was not for very long, because one of those things woke me up. His brown eyes had such a huge amount of fear in them. He went over to the door, well, what was basically a garage door. "I planned to end up trying this, but I couldn't get it up," Elijah explains. "So you want us to help get it up?" Hunter murmured. "You know they might end up immediately going after you, right?" he asks as he went to go help. I followed behind to help lift up the door. "Yes, but they won't get me if they don't know. There's none of them in here or nearby from what it sounds like," Elijah says. Then we all counted from 3 to 1. 3, 2, 1. We lifted up the door, and it was a big black fog that had leaked into the room. Elijah was the first to step out. It happened way too quick. A large, well bigger than average hand, it had long ass claws, and then it grabbed Elijah. Elijah screamed, and as if my subconscious acted on its own, I went to try and shut the garage door. Hunter did the same. The hand seemed to be like some weird gigantic spider with the way it moved. The entire thing was black, but it was scaly. Finally, as the hand shot toward Hunter and I, the door had finally shut, Hunter and I both hyperventilating as the banging got loud. Then we heard the chattering. "Go, go, go," Hunter snapped. I immediately ran out of the room, Hunter running behind me. To the right of us, we saw one of the monsters, not a clear view, but we saw them. So we went to run to the left of us, loud running being heard from behind us. We ran to upstairs. In a panic, we only went to the art classroom. This is where we saw 3 other students in there, but they didn't even dare move. I went to go and try and push the teacher's desk to the door from behind Hunter and I, Hunter quick to help. Then once the gigantic desk was pushed to the door, there was only banging heard from the monster on the door. "Fuck," I muttered. I couldn't help but wonder, where the fuck were we then? Then the PA system had turned on. Elijah Miller had been caught outside of the school. "I thought we had told you to not exit," the monster says over the intercom. "You wouldn't like what was out there." Then it turned off. I can't begin to describe the amount of dread I am feeling while typing. It was clear now that we were not where we were at, so what the fuck is this place?